It's Combine Week. Who has the most to gain or lose this week? Tonight on the Footballguys College Football Show.
All right, we made it, guys. We made it. Combine Week. Now, I always say Combine Week is the week like we get new stuff to argue about because we've been arguing about the same crap for the last few weeks, and now we're getting in the Combine Week. So we appreciate you guys getting here to the College Football Show here at Footballguys. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know how tall you think Bryce Young is in the comments right now. Say, hey, Bryce Young is 5'9", 5'10", 5'11". Do you think he's 6 foot? And then tell me how tall you think Jeff Bell is in the comments. 5'6", 5'5", 5'4". Where do you think Jeff Bell is? Where do you think Bryce is? We're doing that. Be sure, I cannot leave this. We're going to start this off. Get the rookie guide. It's still free version 1.0 right before the combine. If you don't know what some of these guys and what they look like and kind of what you can expect, and you can use some of this rookie guide stuff. I'm thinking of we're going to go over some prop bets later in terms of price or, just prop bets and talk about kind of over under on their 40 and kind of go from there. So let's dive into Combine Week. Let's get into it. Bryce Young. Pictures going around crazy. He's standing with a 6'5" tight end, and people are like, look how short he is. And it always amazes me when people do that. Someone else did that on this show. So Bryce Young, biggest question heading into is his size, though, right? He's not going to throw in this combine, but the biggest thing is his size here. We've talked about Bryce a lot, but what do you think he measures in at, Jeff? What do you think he's going to come in at? What do you want him to come in at? To feel okay, where do you want him to be?
I think north of 5'10", you probably feel okay. I think 5'10" is probably that magic number that we've all decided in our mind. At least that's the number that I've decided in my mind, that I think he's 5'10". I think if he comes in north of that, I think that you're kind of breathing a sigh of relief a little bit. If he comes on under 5'10", we have a major problem, I think. And it's silly to think that just like that micro millimeters, whatever it might be, means that much. But I think just the optics on him being under 5'10", I feel like 5'10" is where we're sitting with Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, like those types of guys. It's kind of been decided that's an okay number. I do think he comes in over that. It sounds like he's going to be close to 200 pounds. I've seen a lot that maybe the number to be concerned is weight more than the height, because when you watch him, he's not a big guy. He's very built slenderly comparatively to the way that Kyler Murray's built, the way that Russell Wilson's built. Those types of guys are almost more like fire hydrants as opposed to they're really built like running backs, whereas Bryce was not built that way. I think if he's over 5'10", over 200 pounds, you're breathing a sigh of relief. You're feeling okay, and that's shoving him up. If he's close to 5'11" or there, then maybe he is the number one quarterback in the draft with a bullet, and so that'll be the major question to answer.
Yeah, I think teams are going to be more concerned about that weight. Like you mentioned, I don't think he's going to get to 200. I think a good line for him is 195. And I think that if he hits 195, I'm pretty comfortable with that, because there have been some insinuations or rumors going around that he played somewhere close to 180, 175, 180. And when you watch him play, you can understand where those rumors come from. He's a very, very thin kid. And I think the main thing is he is he doesn't care much about keeping himself clean and keeping himself protected, because he's willing to stand in and make throws under pressure, which is a good trait of big quarterbacks that can take a lot of hits. But at the NFL level, that's not going to really work for Bryce. He's going to have to evade those big hits if he plans to stay on the field. So I think that's just going to be, the durability stuff is coming to a head this weekend. And once we get that weight, now he's not throwing. That is strategic, right? He's not throwing because he's probably going to weigh in a lot higher than what he plays at. NFL teams are going to know that. So I guess on paper, him weighing in at maybe 198, 199 looks great. Some team says, okay, box checked. He goes out, throws at his pro day. Looks like we all know he can look and looks very good, especially in a controlled environment. And he does those two things well, just not in succession, because if he comes in at 198 and doesn't have that, flexibility, all that athleticism that he normally plays with, because he's coming in a little heavier, I think maybe then you get those concerns. But honestly, if teams are in on Bryce, they're in on Bryce. You just kind of have to understand that he is a size outlier. And I think a lot of teams are already going to be in on him because of how smart he is and because of all the other things that he does really well on a football field.
Yeah. Do you? So I was just looking at recent mock drafts. No one has him outside the top 5. Do you see a scenario, Jeff, where he falls outside top 5?
I think it's a play for all 4 of these guys. I think you can throw them up and jumble. And, I mean, if this guy's 5'9", 180, he's not going to be the number 1 quarterback off the board. It's just not going to happen. And I think that when you look at him, one thing that does stand out, if you watch the LSU game, if you were to watch that whole game, they talked about in the LSU game that he often struggles to see receivers downfield. And you're going to have to move pockets with him. You're going to have to get him on the move. And he's not that super nifty type athlete to get him out on space like that. But I do think that there are a lot of things on tape where going back, we probably wrote it off as, well, Alabama's receivers are bad. And I think that there was a lot of spot throwing on his tape that he didn't know where the receiver was quite for sure. And he was kind of just thrown to the spot and the receiver wasn't necessarily there, and making those adjustments kind of plays into that.
Yeah. I think that if there's a quarterback, there are 2 quarterbacks that I think are going to potentially fall in this draft. Here's the thing. There's so many quarterback needy teams that I don't think many of these guys get outside the top 6 or 7 because I think that there are a lot of teams that do want to go up and trade up to go get their guy. Jeff brought up a good point. I think last year they kicked the can down the road and we saw 1 quarterback in the first round, and that hasn't really worked out with how the NFL quarterback landscape is shaping up right now. So I think that we're going to see all of them gone in the top 10 either way. The order at that point, I don't care much about it. As long as they are all drafted in the first round, from a fantasy perspective, I don't care much about it at least.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into the other quarterback. This is going to be a quarterback-heavy show here. But C.J. Stroud, how does he hold up following Richardson and drills? I know that's something that Jeff's been hard. Jeff's a narrative guy. If you've never seen this show before, Jeff Bell's a narrative guy, and Christian teeters that line a little bit. But for the most part, Jeff's a narrative guy. So we know alphabetical order. He's going to see Richardson there, and so and to me, it's Young and Stroud when we're talking about just the tier where they're at and so forth. But he's going to watch Richardson. So let's just assume Richardson looks really good. Do you think, we've seen him shrivel and pressure sometimes too, like Michigan games, right, Jeff? Do you think CJ is going to be able to kind of man up and kind of show the NFL what he's got?
Yeah, I would expect that he does. I think that he cut it loose a little bit against Georgia, and he kind of got out there, breathed a sigh of relief, and I think that he's going to be okay on this stage. It is interesting, though, because especially when you get into the athletic testing, we'll talk later about what some of these numbers might be for some of these players, but Anthony Richardson should run much lower than C.J. Stroud. So if C.J. Stroud is on the high end of his number, Anthony Richardson's on the low end, and then you go into throwing drills and Anthony Richardson's hitting his mark and he's probably have a stronger arm than CJ Stroud, that could make Stroud look bad in the scenario there. And it's important to note Bryce Young would be following both of those guys. And so yeah, both of those guys are showing out, then Bryce Young's got to go up after them. And Bryce Young made that decision that he's not going to throw at the combine, and he's kind of stepping out of that potential pressure cooker. But you do want to see Stroud do that. You want to see him go out there. You want to see him test. You want to see where he comes in athletically. I think he's not going to be an athletic comparable to Anthony Richardson. That's the bottom line. But if he's athletically comparable to Will Levis, that's where it gets pretty interesting, because if he's a better athlete than Will Levis and you feel a lot more comfortable about the arm on Will Levis feels like the guy that there were rumors about him being the number 1 quarterback in the class or being the number 1 overall pick and all that. He feels like the guy most set up to fall back, just because I don't think he's that level of athlete as Richardson. If he's throwing with these guys, I don't know that he's going to hit those marks the way those other guys are. And so that's going to be the guy that I think the pressure is really going to be on coming into this.
Yeah. So Stroud has an opportunity here, though, because I think there's also the flip side of that where Richardson goes out and he shows off the arm strength, and we know that he has the arm strength, but he's missing the guys, on the out routes and the timing routes and things like that. The things that Richardson definitely still needs to work on. And then Stroud goes out there and just throws dots, because that's what Stroud does. He's incredibly accurate. He's not going to blow you away with his arm strength. And I think, most evaluators know that. They're going to want to see some type of zip from him in this setting, but it's not going to look like zip no matter what following Anthony Richardson, because Richardson is going to be just throwing bullets all over the field. On the other side of things, Stroud's accuracy is the thing that separates him from other people and Bryce's size. So you could say Bryce and CJ are both accurate, but CJ has the size and CJ is planning to do all of the testing. That gives him a leg up. And so when we talk about, which of these quarterbacks could go first overall, I think Stroud has the most to gain here, which sounds a little strange with Anthony Richardson, probably going to come out of this looking really nicely because he's definitely going to be the best athlete. But I think if Stroud just has a very cool, composed performance where he's just himself and he just is very accurate, then I think that we could be talking about him as the first quarterback gone in mock drafts here next week.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Anthony anyway. In your opinion, who has when I'm looking at pressure, in terms of these four guys, I don't think, let's just do these three guys, Richardson, Stroud, and Young. I think, in my opinion, I think Richardson has the most pressure, right? This is kind of his because Stroud, we saw Georgia look great. Hey, just go out there and just do you. You don't need to necessarily be high. Just don't hit the lows. If you're just middling and you make the throws, you do the little things you want. I think CJ could easily be 101. Hey, yeah, okay, that's the guy you're going at. Richardson has the most pressure, right? He's doing all the drill. Of course, I think he's doing all the drills, right? Last time I looked, he's doing all the drills. Yeah. He's in it. He's going to run. He's going to have that 40 time. So this is Anthony Richardson. This is the most pressure we've seen at this quarterback position in a long time, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I think you'd have to. I think
because
so.
Lamar didn't throw, right? Did Lamar throw in the combine? I don't think he did.
I don't remember if he did or did not.
The one I keep coming back to, though, is Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts was reworking his mechanics as he headed into the combine, and then he chose to do everything. I think we've seen a little bit of that from workout videos with Richardson, too. So I keep saying, I walked out of that combine for Jalen Hurts thinking, wow, he's clearly willing to put the work in and fix up those things that he needed to, that we saw on tape at Oklahoma. So that's kind of the comparable, at least approaching the combine. Now, I don't know if Richardson's going to look as good as Hurts did, because if you guys remember, Hurts looked insane at the combine. He looked so good, yeah. And then he still fell to the second round. So I guess that bodes the question: does it matter if he doesn't live up to expectations here? I guess with all the tools.
I think maybe a guy that had to prove a lot of the combine that was a late riser in his class is Patrick Mahomes. Came into the draft, and when Patrick Mahomes came into the draft, he was coming out of that air raid system at Texas Tech, and there was a healthy amount of skepticism about any quarterback coming out of that system. There were a lot of questions about all the things that we love now about Patrick Mahomes were major knocks about him coming into that draft. Everybody was concerned about arm angles and things like that, and this guy's a sandlot player, and can you put him into an NFL offense? And that's a guy that he was a late riser in that class, and kind of coming into it, he, even at the combine, I don't think he was really viewed as a first round pick coming into the combine. I just remember him being really climbing up and being in that class there when Mitch Trubisky was the apple of everybody's eye, and Deshaun Watson had won the national championship at Clemson and was kind of that decorated college quarterback coming in, and Mahomes was kind of just that really raw quarterback. And so I think that I'm not saying that there are similarities in terms of accuracy, development, things like that between Richardson and Patrick Mahomes. Certainly not. But I do think that is maybe a case there where you've got Bryce Young as that decorated college guy, and you've got CJ Stroud as the accurate quarterback that somebody could fall in love with in an NFL offense, and Richardson being that raw player that really needs to show out here. And you've seen the tape, the things that show up on the tape that create these questions that he needs to answer at this situation, because let's be real, if he carried that Utah tape throughout the year, I mean, we might be talking about him being the number one pick with a bullet right now.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. I mean, he's got a lot riding on him. And I think to Christian's point, I think it does matter. I think he's got to do more. He can't bottom out. He can't make really bad throws all the time. He's going to and I think one thing too is when you're watching him, he's going to have some throws. You're like, oh my God, what is that? And that's okay, because that's going to be kind of Richardson. He's going to have some of those throws, but if it's 7-3, 6-4, where you're like, oh, okay, he's improving. He sees that. Cause I mean, his completion percentage is as a prospect, one of the worst that's coming into this thing. Like, so if you see that improvement going forward, I think that's what you look for. Like, I think that is kind of, but he can take it, man. He can go, and there's probably no show rooting harder for Richardson than us, just because I think that he gets a undue crap out there. And as a prospect, it all seems like he is working on it and he's doing it. Like, go get it, young man. That's your job. Go take care of it. Let's talk about Will Levis. It's kind of a letdown here, but like, can he come close to Richardson athletically? I don't, Jeff, you wrote that question, I think. I don't know. I think that he did show it his junior year. So one thing about him is that Levis did have some athleticism and kind of his ability to move in the pocket and stuff. He was hurt last year. And so to the point, like, Levis did get hurt last year and he had a really bad offensive line. I'm not going to try to make excuses for Levis, but that definitely was part of it. What are your expectations for Levis, Jeff?
They're low, being realistic. I don't know. I just never really bought into it. You going back to what was set up there at Penn State, and then obviously we all have our feelings about Sean Clifford, and we're not talking about Sean Clifford other than in the context of Will Levis at Penn State. So that says everything you need to know there. Losing that job, transferring to Kentucky, looking good in 2021 when he had Wan'Dale Robinson. But when you watch that tape, there was a lot of things that Wan'Dale Robinson bailed him out on, and he kind of coming into this year, you were really hoping to see him take that step up. You talk about situations why he did not take that step up, injuries, of course, the offensive line, young youth at the wide receiver. But again, this was a very experienced college player, and you were kind of hoping for a lot better there. And we've seen in the past, I know he plays in the SEC, but outside of playing Georgia, he wasn't exactly playing a murder's row of competition last year in that SEC. And so as much as the diminishment on the offensive line is a factor, Kentucky still had talent last year. They were still in a position that they should have been better last year. They had a disappointing year last year, and carrying that through into the combine, he's not going to test like Richardson. He's not going to be accurate like Stroud. He's not going to carry that buzz like Bryce Young. And so it's just really, it's baffled me through the entire situation when he was viewed as the number one quarterback. In some circles, you almost wonder, is this just a fake narrative that's being pumped out in the media? Because we have seen that from time to time when it comes into the draft, when it comes into quarterback classes. I just don't have high expectations for him. I hope the best for him. I hope he goes out there, performs well, and kind of answers those and really makes this a 4 quarterback class, especially if you're playing in Superflex Dynasty like we do. You feel a lot better about him being at that top 10 pick than if he were to fall back a little bit from the class.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite perplexing how he was viewed as the number one in a class with Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, because as much as we're rooting for Anthony Richardson, those two are the two at the top. And honestly, Levis, to me, athletically, he's going to be fine. I do think that he's going to be a nice athlete. I would argue that what we've seen on film suggests that he's a better athlete than CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, just when you factor in the size components as well. On that other side of it, like, we know that he can run the ball too. It's just that offense last year changed. And like Kevin said, he got hurt. He was getting injections, I'm pretty sure, in his foot literally every week so he could play. And he did miss a game because of that injury. And no, that's not excuses, because even in the games before that, he still hadn't made that development, or he hadn't grown into, okay, I can go through my progressions 1, 2, 3 and actually hit my third progression. He does it occasionally, but it's not at all consistent. And I think that was a problem. And then we talk about, what he had around him. I think a lot of people are minimizing how good Barian Brown and Dane Key were for that offense last year. The offensive line was a problem, and I think that was the strength in 2021. 4 of those guys, I believe, got drafted, or 3 of them at the very least, and 4 are in the NFL. So you understand why maybe that offensive line wasn't able to come together, and then he had a lot of muddy pockets in front of them. But great quarterbacks are able to work with that. I would argue that Bryce Young didn't have a good offensive line this year either, and he still made things happen despite having probably lesser pass catchers, because I do think Barian Brown and Dane Key played for Alabama last year. So athletically, I think people are going to walk out of here and be excited about Will Levis, because I think there's also a world in which he's throwing before Stroud and Richardson. And so he does have zip on his football. He's going to throw it with a lot of arm strength, and he's probably going to be a little more accurate than Anthony Richardson. If he goes out there and he's not, but he's still a good athlete, he's still going to go in the top 10. I still think that there's a world in which he gets picked before one or two of these guys, but he's a project. He's definitely more of a project. This week's going to be big for him, though.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, you guys said it all on Levis. I think he could be big, but I think when you're looking at Levis overall, like he has a chance to solidify himself as a top 10 pick. Go do it, and you don't have to do too much. You just have to. And this is a perfect. So the thing about the combine with Levis, it's a perfect spot for him. Like this is what he does. He'll do well. Like he's gonna go out there because I think the things that Levis struggles with is pressure in his face, reading defenses, structural like stuff like that. You're not gonna see that out there for this. So like that is I think where you're gonna see kind of like they're in gym shorts running around back there, and I think that's where your teams can get in trouble. All right, let's go to the running back position. Devin Shane. He's coming in and everybody loves this kid. Some have him as running back 3. They kind of look at him. I think the biggest thing for him is going to be testing. And he talked about how he wants to break the 40 record. So he's like, hey, I'm going to go break this record and do this. What does that mean? And what did his size come in at? What is his weight's going to be? The hot topic for Devin, Jeff, like what are question marks? What are his biggest question marks? Is there 180? Is it you concerned? Like, what do you think the weight's going to be at with him?
I think he'll be heavier than 180. I do think maybe in that 188, 190 range, probably. It's interesting for him because he needs to weigh more, but at the same time, he needs to be that fast. And so if he checks both those boxes, man, you feel really great coming out of it because he really accomplished 2 goals there. If it tilts to one end or the other, you're kind of where you thought he would be anyways, I guess is kind of the way that I would look at it. I do think he's got one of the biggest opportunities out of this entire running back group because that speed is so prestigious. He's just so fast that if he's able to come in at a weight that teams can convince themselves of, I've seen some weird comps on him. People, Tyreek Cohen, so some things like that. I don't think he's that type of player at all. I think he's that type of player that, there's some creative usage out of the backfield, but at the same time, he can handle carries. He proved that at the SEC, and so you're going to want to see that. You're going to want to see that frame, but can he maintain that speed? Because that tells you, okay, maybe we can continue to stack on this kid. Maybe we can get him closer to 200 even if possible by the time he's in the NFL and going through those programs, and you feel a lot better about him there. And so I think that, again, biggest opportunity ahead of him out of any of the running backs.
Yeah, I actually don't think he's going to weigh in at a weight that we like because I think that he does really want to break that 40 record, and I think that he knows if he bulks up, he's not going to do it. That said, he was listed at 185 at Texas A&M. I heard rumblings that he played at 175. If he played at 175 and he was kind of able to do what he did in the SEC, I think that bodes better for him actually, because if his yards after contact per attempt final total was really good, but if you watch his film on a snap-to-snap basis, it was not consistent. It was consistently getting hit backwards, and then boom, one big play, he breaks one tackle, gets 80 yards after contact, and then that average bumps way up. I struggle with him, and I've said this for the last couple of months. Like I really do struggle to evaluate him because the speed does kill, and the NFL loves fast players. We know this. On the other side of things, if he can't break tackles at the NFL level, he has to be a gadget type of running back, I think, because I don't think that he's particularly good with his hands. I think that he's fine. He can be a fine pass catcher, but it's not like he's a world beater as a pass catcher either. He's not Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not Bijan Robinson. And then, if you can't run him between the tackles, I know he handled a lot of carries at Texas A&M, and he was consistently good with them. It's just, even the SEC, a lot of guys that make it to the NFL say the SEC is the closest thing, but it's a whole different ballgame. So I want to see him break the 40 record. I'm excited that the NFL moved running backs to Sunday so that I can sit down and actually watch it. I don't know if you guys noticed, but they moved the DBs off of the last day. They moved those to Friday, and now I believe it's running backs and offensive line on Sunday. So we get to see all of the fun trench players running 40s next to Devin Achane. So
And I think a chain is one of those guys where, if you love him, you're gonna love him no matter what. Like, you're just kind of fall in love with that speed, and then you're like, hey, can be a difference maker. And we see this every draft cycle. We see guys like this. They fall in love with a player, and then they stick to it, like a running back. Like Kenneth Gainwell was this guy a couple years ago. Like, you see these things. You just hope that he hits, right? And I think it's up to you to determine, and it's up to us when we talk about him. Like, hey, should you take the risk? And then I think that's where you have to go. Another guy that's kind of he's got a big combine coming up. Sean Tucker, Syracuse running back. Draft circles don't like him very much. 40-yard dash time. Like, there's a rumor with him that he was clocked at 4.3 in high school. And so, like, everybody uses that, like, 4.3 high school 40. Projections have him mid 4.4s. So, like, projections have him in the mid 4.4 area right now based on where that's at. Is there a 40 time, Jeff, that you're like, yeah, if he gets under 4.5, I'm okay with? Is there one where you're like, oh my gosh, where's he at? Because there's a lot of questions. Like, I don't think athletic questions for him, maybe. But I definitely, if he doesn't hit a 40-yard dash time that teams will like, I think we're going to see a really precipitous fall for Tucker.
Well, I think in certain fantasy circles right now, when you look at him, I would probably put that 4.4 flat number in mind when I'm looking at him on where some people are evaluating him when it comes to fantasy. If he runs a sub 4.4, if he's over that, that immediately tells you that's the type of player that we've seen on tape. And that's the type of player that we're kind of projecting when we're ranking him, those types of things. I think that out there, some people have him as close to a Shane, like close to that top fastest back in the class. And if he doesn't break that 4.4 number, if he's in the high 4.4s, or if he's even close to 4.5, you're going to see a lot fall off of him. So if you're in a circle that values him and you're holding him maybe from Devy, maybe you had an early draft, this is an opportunity probably to get out, because this is kind of one of those guys that coming out of it, I think expectations are in one place, especially for some circles that talk about him. And I think this guy is primed not to hit those. And he's not going to be Kyron Williams of this combine. He's not going to be that slow, like anything like that at all. But you're baking in that he is that 4.38 type guy in the evaluation if you're putting him towards the top of your class. And so finding out that he's really, if he's slower than Kendre Miller, if he's slower than, if he's close to the ballpark of Zach Charbonnet, like those types of guys, it's just forget about it. You're not going to get the valuation that where he's being held in some places.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I saw all of the, like, he's a track athlete and those types of things. And then the first time I went through his film, God, I don't know the first time I watched him, a long time ago. The first time I went through his film, he was barely pulling away from like really small school defenders. And I got a little concerned that maybe those times weren't quite accurate. I do think he's like a 4.42, 4.43 type of guy, because I think we saw some growth with that this year. But man, like, I don't even think he's going to be the second fastest running back. I think Keaton Mitchell from East Carolina is probably going to run faster than him. And I think that that's a guy that we'll probably get some buzz on here down the stretch because of that. One main thing to take away from the show too is maybe don't overreact to everything too. Cause there might be some guys that don't test as well or test incredibly well, that you like. Don't overreact if you've already kind of looked at these guys and open up the rookie guide as well. But yeah, Tucker, to me, we're already kind of low on him, and a bad athletic testing for him would be pretty detrimental to what we think he can be, because right now he's projected to be a day 3 pick. I think that that's something that hasn't been talked about a whole lot in every single like 7-round mock draft that I've read. And I'm looking at like all of the people who are plugged in. I mean, he's down RB 8 through 12 for most of them. And that many running backs, I mean, we might see 8 or 9 in the first 3 rounds, but it's just really tough to imagine that he, with a bad athletic testing at the combine this weekend, gets anywhere near the 3rd round.
And I think with Tucker, a couple games that stood out to me watching the tape, like against Wagner, the dude had 230 yards and 3 touchdowns. You take away that game, the production went down extremely bad this year in terms of what he did in the ACC. And the games that the Notre Dame game was struggle. Notre Dame was a really big struggle for him. He struggled in that game to get going. Purdue, which did not have a good rushing defense, like they did not look good this year. 18 carries, 42 yards. he's a boomer bust guy, even in the production standpoint of what he did. Like there was a lot of games that you go on through the tape, 18, 19, 20 carries, 60 yards. And then, then he had that 21, 152 touchdowns. So like, and I think it's just there's a lot of just red flags in his profile. Like there is a lot of red flags in his profile. And I think that's what you have to kind of look at. And yeah, I think for him in this thing, he better just run okay. And then the profile will look a little bit better. Like if he gets that 4.5, you're okay. Yeah, right. So like in terms of that, but all right, let's go to another slow guy. I don't know, Zach Charbonnet, running back from UCLA. You know, some people, again, guys, is there a consensus running back 3 yet? There's no consensus running back 3, right? Everybody's just picking a guy they like and just putting him there.
I think he's closest that we got to it, to be honest with you, from what I've seen in conversation
on Twitter. Oh, he's the next Isaiah Spiller. Don't be like, what are you saying here? I got the receipts tonight. Why do you think he could be the next Isaiah Spiller?
I have questions about his athleticism. I think when it comes down to it, when I watch him on tape, I think he's much more instinctual runner than Isaiah Spiller. He's worked more in more schemes than Isaiah Spiller. He plays through contact a lot better than Isaiah Spiller. I don't know. When I watch him, it just doesn't seem overly. He doesn't chew up a lot of ground. I guess I'll put it in the open field when I watch him play. And a lot of the things that I see from him are running through arm tackles that I think there are a lot of 8-yard runs at the college level that are 2.5-yard runs at the NFL level. And that's kind of what I see when I'm looking at him. I think that he ran behind a very good offensive line at UCLA. I think he was in a very good scheme his first year at Michigan. I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson helped a lot with the running game and working those, the RPO action, kind of stressing the defense in those directions. And I think he was set up arguably as well as anybody coming into this draft.
Well, I don't agree with you. No, I like Charbonnet a decent bit. I think, the Isaiah Spiller stuff, I get where you're coming from that perspective. On the other side of things, like I do think Charbonnet is probably going to hit late 4.4s, like low 4.4s, 4.48, 4.49. His over under is set at 4.52. I think anywhere in the 4.5s and you're pretty comfortable with it as long as he's still weighing in at 220 pounds. I know I've talked about it. I think he reminds me of, a better Brian Robinson. We've got our comps in the rookie guide. You have to actually get the rookie guide to see those ones because better Brian Robinson is not the comp we have for Zach Charbonnet. But I think ultimately he's going to walk out of this with like an 8 relative athletic score, somewhere around there, 7.5, 8. And then the film mixed with that, I think is going to be enough to, I think he's going to be a round 2, early round 3 pick when the draft rolls around. So
I'm in the middle, go figure. But I think with like Jeff, to his point, when you watch the tape, he really struggles laterally sometimes. Like I think he struggles laterally in open space. Like there is a struggle there, and I don't think he'll ever be able to like be that guy in the NFL at the next level. But yeah, I do think that he can score touchdowns. He's going to be good within the tackles. Like, and he has a role, fine role. And I think, yeah. So like, I'm comfortable saying 2nd, 3rd round draft capital right now. Like I'm comfortable in that area, but I do think, to Jeff's point, I think the athleticism thing, this is why we do the combine. All right. Because once Spiller, Spiller didn't run the combine last year, but when he ran it at his pro day and everything that happened, like that was bad. And we knew, okay, Weidemeyer, same thing. Like we noticed these guys. I think Charbonnet is going to be that guy like, oh, okay, we're comfortable. Oh, never mind. He's out. He's not going to be running back 3. Like that's just going to be how we did differentiate these guys. Because there's so many guys from running back 3 to like, I don't know, 10 that you're just like, well, it just depends. Let's see how they kind of move. And then that's where those pieces. So the nice thing is we're going to start piecing them together. All right, let's go to wide receivers. Jalen Hyatt. We just put speed. So let's like when we think of this, we know the speed's going to be there. I mean, realistically, he has a lot of pressure. He's got to run fast because that's what teams are expecting. So like, I think he has some of the things to lose if he like suddenly just becomes not fast, which I don't think is going to happen. But overall, like he's probably the biggest question mark as a prospect for me. I don't know what the hell to do with him. Like I think that he's gonna probably get a good draft capital. He's gonna be fast, but after that, I think there's some question mark. We're gonna see his lateral agility in this one, route running a little bit, catching, all those things. Jeff, what's your expectations for Hyatt?
fastest wide receiver at the combine, maybe, or threatening to be. I just, in my mind, I think he's either going to be the first wide receiver drafted or the sixth wide receiver drafted. And I just kind of waffle back and forth just because I think testing wise, he's got a longer frame. He's a 6 foot guy. He's a little bit bigger than some of the other wide receivers in this class. And so if he comes out there and runs in the 4.29, whatever it might be, that are opening eyes and putting him in that position, I could see a team decide, hey, we know that we're concerned about his route release package. We're concerned about those types of things in his game. But at the same time, he just has the speed and he has that trait down. We know that plays in our offense, and let's just take it because we've seen that happen before over and over again in the draft. And so that's where it kind of comes down on him. I don't know. I mean, maybe runs the gauntlet. Maybe he looks terrible there. Or that's going to be a big question on whether or not he performs in that. But he does, I think, has the best opportunity because, if Jordan Addison, if Jackson Smith and Jigbo, we love them for fantasy. If they are more of that high fours, closer to 4.5 guys at their kind of not answering those questions on whether or not Jackson Smith and Jigba could play outside or the physicality of Jordan Addison, those types of things. Every receiver at the top of this class has question marks.
Yeah. Jalen Hyatt he's going to run sub 4.3, I'd bet. He has to though. He must hit. He already actually, I think, threw the 4.29 number out and said, I expect to run this. And I don't think that was a smart move. That's also just a rumor that's what he's targeting. I'm in the most intriguing matchup of the combine is Hyatt versus a chain for the fastest 40 time, I think. But I think Hyatt would be smart not to run the gauntlet and not to do any of the other stuff here. On one hand, it doesn't show that he wants to compete. On another hand, that's a good way to maybe kill that draft stock that you created with that fast 40, because we know what he does well, and he should know what he does well as well. So, you guys know my thoughts on Jalen Hyatt as a prospect, but excited to watch him run.
Well, two things. One, could you imagine having the cojones to be like, yeah, I'm going to run 4.29. Yeah, I'm just going to do it. Like no, like I would look like I would just not look good out there. And then I want to do a show bet. Who runs faster 40, Hyatt or Chain? Jeff, who you got?
I'm going to go with a Shane.
Same.
Christian?
Yeah.
All right. I'll take Hyatt because I started this stupid game and I thought someone was going to be different. So I'll take Hyatt. All right. We're going Hyatt, baby. I'm rooting for you one time. But I think you're right in terms of that. All right. Quentin Johnston coming in, TCU kid. We know what he is. Jeff, Jeff, I think he's your wide receiver 1, right? I'm just kidding. So Quentin, well, actually, I don't know what he is actually. He's pretty close, right? Oh, he's Christian. So we were thinking of Quentin Johnston, he has the size. So we know that. So when you're looking at the size and everything there, if he's your wide receiver 1, Christian, why don't you talk about him a little bit? What do you want from him?
Well, I'm glad. So Jeff wrote in here true size plus testing. So I'm curious to see what the TCU boys all weigh in at and measure in at, because I think that there might be some embellishing happening on those sheets given out to media. I think he's probably as tall as he was listed at. He's a thinner dude. I know he's got the height that might compensate for that. So what I'm really looking for is he what he was listed at? Or if he's a little lighter, is he going to run a faster 40 than projected? Because right now his over under is set at 4.44. And if he's 6'3", 210 even, and he runs like a 4.42, I'd be pretty comfortable with that. So, but I still, Jeff was talking about it. He's kind of shocked that we haven't gotten to, a point where this guy is the wide receiver 1 based on the size and the athleticism projected. That might change this weekend. So,
yeah, that
is
was
it the Treylon Burks effect? Do you think, Jeff?
I think that's some of it. I think that we are operating such a fishbowl, and so that conversation. I think Treylon Burks is a good place to start. And the conversation has been this offseason, especially it seems like more in the past, how people finally caught up. We were talking last year about quick separators and guys that can operate in space and those types of things. And I think that conversation is caught up. But the problem is the conversation doesn't catch up. The conversation swings all the way over here. And so, everybody's just fading the big fast guys now all of a sudden because we've seen that trend towards those quick separators. But I think that there is certainly a role still in an NFL offense for Quentin Johnston's a prototypical X, and you know what he's going to be. He's going to plug into that. He's going to be able to stretch the field. It'll be a question of whether or not they can use him in the short to intermediate game, and if he can operate with the ball in his hands, that's going to be a big question in an NFL offense. But he's going to be able to stretch the field. He's going to be able to get downfield. He's going to be able to make big plays. That's not a volume play, but it did surprise me. Looking at the prospect profile, looking at what we've seen in the past, when I was writing him up for the guide, looking at his tape, those types of things, back at end of December, beginning of January, I really thought people would get into draft season, rookie season, and say, well, he's the one big, strong, fast guy out of this whole class, and so I have to put him as my wide receiver one, because in the past we've seen those big, strong, fast wide receivers. And, I was having fun on Twitter yesterday, and I said something about him with Josh Downs and Zay Flowers, and I got attacked. Everybody's got Josh Downs and Zay Flowers ahead of him, and that blew me away. That it's people have just swung so hard, so far to the other direction that, sometimes it is good to take the guy that's bigger, stronger, faster than everybody else on the field.
Yeah. I'm on the mode with these guys. They're all tier 2. So to me, when I'm looking at overall, and I do think it's the Burks effect. I really do. I think it's the Burks effect. I think people thought, remember last year this time, people thought Burks were going to go out there and run what? A 4.3? And they were like, oh my God, 101. He was the 101. So I did this. I looked at the ADP last year. Burks was going 101 in ADP at mocks at this point because people had, and not us. We were actually telling you guys hey, Burks is not that athletic. Be careful with this. He's not there. We were pretty down on Burks overall on this show. But it's cool. We don't get credit for anything. But yeah, I mean, we were down on that, right? We were hey, be careful. Just like Kyron, we're hey, be careful. Don't do it. Don't fall in those traps. And so I think it's the Burks effect. And I don't. Johnston's better than Burks, right? As a prospect overall, coming out
as a natural wide receiver, I think so.
Yeah,
but not analytically. So that I think that's also the divide, because Burks hit a lot of metrics that people are looking for. And Johnston, we have to remember at the beginning of this year, even Johnston was not getting the ball. And there are serious questions on why that is. And I think he's probably answering those questions, not right now because the wide receivers aren't there yet, but he will be in the next couple of days to NFL teams. Why weren't you the focal point of the offense? And what changed? Why did you end up becoming the focal point of the offense too? But yeah, the thing with Burks though is he ran even worse than even we thought. He was a much worse athlete. I think where he went wrong was the explosives were bad, and you could have projected those would be good. We have to remember there's more than 40 times too. These guys jump, and Burks he couldn't jump for some reason. Yeah. Johnston's gonna jump out of the gym. It's going to be insane. I'm excited for that too.
Yeah. I think that's where it comes from. I just want to bring it up. All right. Last couple guys here. Trey Palmer. I can't get rid of Trey Palmer for my life. I love Trey Palmer coming into LSU as a Debbie guy. And it just kind of just fall to it in Nebraska. Elite level athleticism. Is he going to be able to handle everything that through? My take on Trey Palmer is he's a really good athlete. I don't necessarily know how good of a receiver he is, but he's a very good athlete. And I think vertical passing, I think he can work all areas of the field. He does really good in yak. The question mark is where does he land and those type of things. But I think he could earn himself some, a little bit more value here. Jeff, what do you think about him?
I talked last week about Michael Wilson, how I was going through watching 50 wide receivers on tape, and some guys make you set up in your chair straight after you watch some guys that you just know are not going to be NFL prospect. Trey Palmer was one of those guys that I was like, oh, okay, when we found that one. And, and that's where he had those bloodlines coming from LSU and kind of being in that program. He's still kind of got a little bit on that hit, his first year stuck behind Jamar Chase, stuck behind Justin Jefferson in that loaded LSU team. Kayshon Boutte came in right away. Terrence Marshall we saw him be a second, third round pick, a day 2 pick coming into the draft when he came into the draft. And so things were really, really scattered and clustered there with him at LSU. Then going to Nebraska and breaking Nebraska's single season receiving record in just 1 year at Nebraska. And if you watched Nebraska last year, he was really the one highlight on that team last year. They really did not have a lot going for them. Trey Palmer was the highlight. Athleticism is going to be there. And I think athleticism, he can put himself into that top tier with athleticism. We have questions about him as a natural ball catcher working throughout. The gauntlet's going to be big for him, I think, because showing that ability to handle that drill, be able to run through everything, be able to catch the ball naturally. If he answers those questions, you feel a lot better for him. And I think that he's going to enter some interesting conversations. I think that when you get into the draft as maybe that day 2 type guy, late day 2. And so I think you have to look at him because those explosives I do expect to be there. It'll just be a question, can he go out there? If he drops a couple balls, it's going to be a real bad look for him.
Yeah. Yeah, those are, I echo that. He's going to be a good athlete. I think that's what pushes him into the 3rd round of the NFL draft. But I don't think he's a good receiver. I think he's got a lot of developing to do. And I think I struggle with guys that have a lot of developing to do and they're pretty far along in their career. Like they're coming out late. I'm fairly out on Trey Palmer, but he could go prove me wrong because the gauntlet is one that it actually hurt Garrett Wilson last year because he was jumping through the gauntlet. Wasn't that what happened? So we know that narratives can come from that as well. So I'm intrigued to watch him this weekend.
Well, that was my favorite thing. Jumping Garrett Wilson dropped in the rookie drafts, and I got called an idiot for saying he was wide receiver 1. I love this. I love this job. All right, Luke Musgrave. Let's go there real quick. He's gonna definitely be athletic. So you're looking at Luke here from Oregon State. Wasn't on the field a ton, injured, those type of things. Now the question is, can he close the gap on those big top level tight ends? And I think he has an opportunity to. Kincaid, Mayer, those guys, Laporta, some of those other dudes that are in there. There's so many tight ends in this class as I've gone through them. Overall, I think he can close it if he runs really well. I think the biggest thing for him is not like athleticism stuff, it's just health. And that's not something that you can really measure, like in terms of him staying on the field. Real quick, Jeff, any thoughts on Musgrave?
It's just going to be interesting because there's so much depth at the tight ends in this class and how these guys go out there and test. I'm also a little bit more concerned about Michael Mayer testing and then like some of these other guys, because, if Darnell Washington is weighing 30 pounds bigger than Michael Mayer and tests better than him, then, what are we talking about a little bit there? But it'll be interesting to see. But it's one of those, I have a question with the running backs and the question with the tight ends. There's so many good ones. Does that peel them back a little bit in the draft, and does that shove the pass rushers, corners, those types of things up a little bit more? And I think with Musgrave, when you're really looking at it, as if he can sneak into the back end of the first round, what teams are drafting in the back end of the first round, whereas if he's more that early second or he flows through whatever it might be, the passing offenses that he could land in there. And so that's kind of a big question on him, a big question on Kincaid, big question on Mayer coming into this. Can they really catch that first round capital? Are these teams going to say we can't miss on this guy, or are they going to clump these guys together and allow themselves to wait a little bit more? And you kind of miss on that tier landing in an offense that you really want to see for fantasy purposes.
Yeah. Musgrave's going to fly in this 40 though. I think that's important. Like, he's another guy that I think he could challenge the fastest tight end record. I don't know what that exactly is off the top of my head. I should have researched that, but I didn't. But I think that he's one of those guys that could challenge that. My questions are stuff that you aren't going to find out at the combine. Like, can he hold a block as a pass blocker, or can he stay balanced as a run blocker and stay on the field? Those are some of my questions about him, and we don't get that in this setting, unfortunately. But he gets to run fast, and we get to get excited. So I'm still gonna enjoy it.
So the fastest 40 times for tight ends: Vernon Davis 4.4 flat, Dorian Dickerson 4.4 flat, and Evan Ingram 4.42. So those are the fastest tight end times that have been recorded.
Okay, I could see Musgrave getting in the 4.4s though. So maybe not that, but I could see like a 4.48. He's fast. He is extremely fast.
Yeah, he is. That's my guy. Let's hope he does well. I hope he does well, just because I want to look smart. All right, let's so that's the combine. We are gonna look we are gonna go to just a review next week of the combine, winners, losers, kind of dive into it like everybody else. But we're just gonna kind of give you our takes on it from an overall perspective. But we appreciate you guys listening to like the preview, and it's gonna be a lot of fun, like you talked about. Look at the running backs this weekend, see it, can kind of dive into it, get the rookie guide right now, so you can kind of know what to expect. So all right. Well, that's the show for that part. We're going to dive into games now, have some fun, talk about it, and go over in some game picks. So, Christian, take us away.
Yes. So the Sportsbook rundown this week. Jeff went 4-0 in his XFL picks last week. Good job, Jeff. Kevin, you went 3-1, and I went 2-2. I hate this game. I'm so bad at the Sportsbook rundown. So everyone follow these two's leads. This week we're picking XFL. We're also going to pick some NFL Combine over unders as we get through this. So we're going to fly. First game, Seattle versus Las Vegas. Kevin.
Yeah. So I know I said I wasn't going to pick Ben DiNucci, but I'm going to pick Ben DiNucci again. I'm going to go Seattle.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're going to have to give me the team names because I don't know the players. So,
yes.
Jeff, where are you going?
Seattle lost a close one last week. I'm going to go with Seattle, gets it back together, and wins this week.
All right, I'll take Vegas, although I shouldn't, clearly, based on my record. DC versus St. Louis. Jeff, you first.
DC is a dominant team, and I'm going to take them.
Are they now? Okay. I'll take DC as well. Kevin.
This is the game of the week, boys. They're both undefeated. Battlehawks versus Defenders. I'm a DC fan, so I'm going DC. Just became one 2 weeks ago.
Great. Next one, Arlington versus Orlando. I pick first. I think if I recall, Orlando is bad. And so Arlington is going to be my pick here. Kevin, you're up.
Arlington. Orlando is terrible.
Jeff.
Arlington, making it clean sweep. That means Orlando's going to win.
For sure. Any given whatever day they play on, Saturday, I think. San Antonio versus Houston is the next one, Kevin.
I'll take the Roughnecks, Houston.
I was going to say, you can't give me the team names, actually. I need the city. Jeff, you're up.
Big budding rivalry here right now in Texas in the XFL, and I'm gonna go with Houston here.
Okay, I'm going to go San Antonio. Go Spurs. Combine over under. We're going to pick a lot of these 40 times, it looks like. So first one, Will Anderson, 4.6 flat is his line. Jeff, where are you going?
I'm going to go under that. I think he's going to break 4.6 flat.
I am also going to go under. Kevin?
Under. I have no idea, but I'm going to go with you guys.
Okay. Next one, Tyree Wilson, 4.82. Under. Kevin?
That feels really low for Tyree, so I'm going to go under as well.
Jeff?
Under. I'm sorry, Tyree. We really did this to you.
Yeah, sorry, bud. Christian Gonzalez, 4.35. Kevin?
Over.
Jeff?
I'm going to over. That seems like a low number.
I'm going to go under. I think he runs like a 4.32, 4.33. He's also very fast. Anthony Richardson, 4.45 in the 40. Jeff? This is the
under.
tough one. Under. Okay.
Let's make it fun.
I can't go push, can I? Because I think he's gonna run a 4.45. But to be safe, I'm gonna go over. Kevin.
Under, baby. We gotta have some fun with this one.
I know. I'm the fun sucker here. Quentin Johnston, 4.44. I am going over. I think he runs like a 4.48. Kevin, where are you going?
Over.
Jeff.
Man, I was going to be different, but I'm not. I'm going to go over.
All right, the big one, Devin Achane, 4.29. Kevin.
Over.
Yeah, he doesn't run under a 4.29. I'm going to go over.
I said he was going to come in light, and so 4.26, baby. Let's do it. I'm not even 4.28. We're skipping to 4.26. All right, and the last one, Bijan Robinson, 4.47 is the line. Jeff.
Over.
I'm going to go under. Kevin.
I want over just so Dynasty Twitter loses their mind.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for too. Give me that 4.25.
So that's the other part of that is they could lose their mind if he runs like a 4.40 or something like that, and he's like a 10 relative athletic score. So I want that too. Everyone will be happy. I want happiness in the world, guys. Come on,
it's chaos.
All right, that'll do it for the Sportsbook Rundown.
Okay, so let's go over we're going to do a little bit of combine props because that's what we have here, even though we just did it again. But what we're going to talk about, a little props here. And, we're going to go over, which means they're going to go over the projected number that they have. And then we're going to go under that they're under the projected number they're at. So, which is going to be funny because never mind, Christian's changing it. All right, let's dive into this a little bit. So we're going to play a little bit of blackjack on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate you. Hit that like button right now. Don't forget, hit it now. Like you always forgetting. I see you guys out there watching. Hit that like button while we do this. So Christian, what is your first over on your and we're going a little bit off the board here with some of these guys.
Yeah, so I'm going with DeJuan Jones. We're going to bring offensive line into the show tonight. His over-under is set at 5.39. For those that don't know, he's an offensive tackle at Ohio State. Big boy. I'm going over 5.39. I don't think he's going to run very fast. So,
all right. So we've got a 10 of clubs, a 9 of hearts, and a 7 of hearts, and Christian has a 6 of hearts. And I'm going to go Tyler Scott, wide receiver from Cincinnati. I'm going to go over 4.30 for Tyler Scott in the 40 time. And I've got an ace of clubs.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to be perfectly clear with everybody out there. Don't follow any of my bets for over under on 40 stuff. That's not my forte. I just steal Christian's shit. Like that's what I do. Sorry, Joe. That's really what I do here. But I'm going to go Bryce Young over 4.58 on the 40. I don't think he's that fast.
2 of hearts.
Yeah. My under is
just hedge it. You're fine. Just do it.
I thought about explaining what hedging is to those people that don't bet.
Yeah, just hedge it. You're fine.
No. I don't want to do that because I want to win both. I'm greedy. I'm gonna go under 4.5 for Malik Cunningham because I think that he's gonna be a little smaller, and I think he's gonna be like a 4.4s type of quarterback that everyone loses their mind over.
5 of hearts would have been fun, Christian, but you didn't.
I know.
I'm gonna go CJ Stroud under 4.72. So we'll go under 4.72 with CJ Stroud. My guy, CJ, I came around on you, and we've had a tumultuous relationship. But I'm pulling for you this weekend, CJ, and I hope you go light it up. 10 of spades. So a pair.
You don't deserve that. After what you did to CJ, you don't deserve that. Like you were after the Michigan game, you were punting him out of the room, and then all of a sudden now it's CJ. Okay, I'm gonna go Tank Dell under 4.4. I want Tank Dell to run really fast.
4 of clubs. I won the show, guys.
Yeah. Yes, you did.
That's
we have quick trivia.
Sure, we can play a little bit of trivia. We play blackjack when we play trivia, and the way we do that is we flip the cards, and if you need a hit, you get a trivia question. So Christian's going to start us off, and Christian's going to throw up a 20. Kevin is going to have, I thought Kevin had it with he's got an ace and a 4, and I've got a nice little 11 showing. So I guess Kevin's first up. So Kevin, what tight end ran the fastest 40 time?
What tight end ran the fastest 40 time?
Combine history.
Oh, he just told you.
I know. I wasn't listening. I don't listen to Jeff on the show. I truly have no idea. I wasn't listening to you.
Vernon Davis.
Okay.
You still did not bust, though.
I mean, the fact that I didn't listen to you, that's
What other tight end ran the fastest 40
I
times?
didn't listen to you. I didn't listen to you anything that you said when you were talking about that. Like I'm gonna be honest with you.
Dorian Dickerson. I think he
Okay.
busted now.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Is it you need a question, Jeff?
Do you need a question?
In what year was the first NFL draft held? Not combine.
1938.
Oh my gosh, I should have given you a 5-year window. It was 1936.
Wow.
That was a really close bet or guess. Not bet.
Yeah.
You
I
didn't
didn't
bust yet.
bust. I got a question
Okay.
for you, Jeff.
Sure.
Okay.
Who has the biggest broad jump in combine history?
Biggest broad jump in combine history.
He's a corner. I'll give you that. He's a corner. And it's within the last 8 years.
Oh man, I was gonna say Darnell Green.
You
Not
just
last-
lost half of our audience. Yeah, it's last
Yeah.
8 years.
Gosh. The dude from Byron Jones.
Byron Jones. Look at you. You got it. Not
Good
a
job.
boy.
Very nice.
You know who
Busted
would be
that.
so proud of you right now? Adam Harstead. Adam Harstead would be
Sure he
so
would be.
proud of you right now.
We
that
love
you
Adam.
named all those old guys. Adam's naming dudes from 1920 in the base camp.
All right, Jeff, you won the show.
Hey, we're at Combine Week, and that means that we're moving through the rookie territory of the year, and that's very, very exciting. Make sure to check out the rookie version 2.0 of our rookie guide after we drop. We'll have all the combine testing included. We'll have a couple players that were missed the first time around, and we want to go with the deepest guide that you can possibly get. So get your Footballguys Elite subscription, and you'll get that rookie guide right when we release it. And we're going to work hard this weekend. We're going to make sure we have it out and ready for you to go. And other than that, it's just a fun time of year. So enjoy.
Cool.
Enjoy it. All right, we'll be back next week on March 8th. We'll be back 9 p.m. Eastern, and I will do my best to listen to Jeff Bell next week. I promise. But until then, I'm Kevin Coleman.
I'm Jeff Bell.
And I'm Christian Williams, and you just watched the Football Guys College Football Show.